Okay. Hello, hi everyone, and welcome to the Browser's Performance Roundtable, where we sit down with experts from Opera, Mozilla, and Microsoft. So my name is Marco Casario, and I'll be the moderator of the roundtable. We'll be together for about 40 minutes or so, and I guess this is the last. Actually, this is the last slot of the day. So we'll have networking and beer time after that. So before starting off, I'll just get everyone come on, Bruce. I just get everyone to introduce ourselves, and starting with Bruce.
I'm Bruce Lawson from Opera, and I'm from the UK, and I'm really nice, and my browser's the fastest.
How do I follow up with that? I'm Chris Mills, a senior tech writer for the Mozilla Developer Network. And what can I say? I think our browser's the fastest. And we don't have a logo that looks like a toilet seat.
And I'm David. I'm working as a technical evangelist on HTML5. I'm from Microsoft France, so maybe my accent will be easier to understand than my UK colleagues. So maybe you're going to love me for that. And maybe you will less love me for IE, even if we've changed a lot since IE9, so I guess we're going to discuss about that. And I am working on a WebGL engine, maybe you know it. It's named Babylon.js, and I love WebGL because now we've got WebGL in IE.
So my very first question is for all of you. So it's, what's your company focusing on to improve the browser's performance?
Opera Desktop and Opera Mobile for Android recently switched to use Chromium. And one of the things that we're doing with Chromium is committing a lot back. We don't just take Chromium and use it. We've committed well over 1,000 bug fixes, etc. Chromium, the main rendering engine, is called Blink, like Gecko and Trident for my colleagues' browsers. And Blink, the priority this year is to be better on performance-constrained environments. So the Google guys and the Opera guys have agreed, because we've always had lots of experience in optimizing for lower specification devices, because that's a lot of our target market. The Opera chaps will be spending a lot of time improving the performance of Blink to reduce its memory footprint, to reduce its memory consumption, and to reduce its power consumption on performance-constrained devices. That's not just mobiles, that's older laptops too, because Windows XP might be dead for us, but there are lots of machines running Windows XP in schools in Cambodia and Thailand and Africa, places where the web needs to be. So that's what we'll be doing. Christopher.
Why, thank you, Bruce Alina. So we have worked on a lot of performance improvements in our JavaScript and CSS rendering inside Gecko. But not only that, we've also been working on technologies such as asm.js, which is a very optimizable subset of JavaScript, which you can make to run really, really, really fast inside Firefox, and then any other browser that chooses to follow the same kind of optimization paths, so ahead of time compilation and such things. We also have a compiler called mscripton, which can compile LLVM bytecode into JavaScript, into specifically asm.js. What else do we have? We're working on a project called electrolysis, which is basically multi-threaded Firefox, so better performance because of each tab running in a separate thread. And then, of course, in the mobile space, we've got our Firefox OS browser, which is totally run on HTML5, running inside the Gecko engine. So a whole entire mobile operating system just running inside Gecko, which is being optimized very heavily for running on low-power mobile devices. We have a $25 smartphone coming out, which is already proving to stand up fairly well, albeit with a lot of performance optimizations to make web apps run in that kind of very, very constrained environment. David.
So on our side, we optimize a lot the JavaScript engine, like I guess everybody, to have almost native performance on some specific cases. We've started to do that for Windows 8 applications, so maybe you know that, but now you can write HTML5 application for the Windows Store, so you can be a C++ or C# and now a JavaScript developer to write application for our stores, including the Windows Phone since the last weeks. And to do that, to say to maybe to some of your C++ colleagues that now I can write some JavaScript code as fast as your C++ code, we need to optimize a lot the jitter. So we've done that following the great performance of Mozilla and Opera and Google on that point. We also work a lot on the GPU side, the hardware acceleration layer, meaning that you can draw a lot of pixels on the screen and all your drawing instruction will go to the GPU. So we start to do that with the Canvas 2D, and then we've got access to WebGL, and we are currently optimizing a lot our WebGL engine inside IE 11. And now, since last week, we have announced that if you've got a Windows Phone, you will have the same engine from the desktop to the Windows Phone, and we have access to WebGL. So that's what we've done currently, and this is the same engine on our side from the desktop to the mobile, and even on the Xbox One. So currently on Xbox One, we've got i10, and we are going to update the system to have the very same browser on all our platforms.
Okay, thank you, guys. And do you have any, releasing roadmap, and when can, developers expect to see, and take advantages of these improvements you are working on, guys?
As for Opera's contributions to Blink, there's about 1,000 of them already committed. They're not all performance optimizations. There's new CSS things we've added to. Those are in there already. There's a batch of small improvements on memory usage that we've made. I don't think they've been reviewed yet, but they'll be committed soon, so within a few months. There's some other things we do as well, like we have a product called Opera Turbo, which lives inside the Opera mobile browser and the desktop browser, and that compresses things on the fly. So if you're in a country where you have a slower network, but you're using a desktop, you can turn on Opera Turbo, and it has a bunch of improvements. It compresses images and turns them into WebP, which is smaller and therefore faster down the wire. We're upgrading that soon on mobile and desktop. And Opera Mini, which is a proxy-based browser, we're looking at improving the CSS rendering, etc. on that. So months is all I can say, because I'm not allowed to say when, even if I do know, or my PR guys will kill me. Any PR guys in the house? They're dangerous people.
So all of the things that I mentioned, which we're doing inside Gecko and Firefox to improve performance, most of it's available now. The electrolysis multi-threading feature that I talked about earlier is currently available in a very early stage in our nightly builds, but I suspect it will be a few months down the line before that stuff gets properly rolled out into the release versions. In terms of Firefox OS stuff, the performance is improving all the time, both in terms of pure rendering performance and also user experience. The latest release phones are in version 1.3, which has got support for a lot of the new APIs and some of the stuff, but then we've got version 2 probably coming out sort of maybe Q2 or Q3, which is going to have an all-new kind of windowing system and lots of kind of perceived performance improvements through the better UX of that. That's called Hyder. But yeah, everything else is supported today. One good thing about the mscripten and asm.js work that we're doing is that's now getting support from a lot of the major engines. So for example, we've just announced that the Unity 3D game engine is now supporting asm and WebGL, which is a really, really cool thing to have in our arsenal. So there's lots of good things coming up.
So For me, it's better since last week, again, because we didn't used to really say what we were going to implement. If you now go on a website named status.modern.ai, we are now listing all the specification we're currently looking at, and saying if we don't care about a specific specification, or if we're currently developing it, or if we're looking it for a future version. If you see in development on this website, this means that it's going to be shipped in IE 11. So now IE 11 is going to be updated in a more frequent way to every 3 or 4 months with some performance optimization or new feature. For instance, there's going to be the gamepad API shipping in IE 11 in a few months, which is really great as a game developer as me. And for IE 12, I don't have any information yet, but I guess we will communicate by the end of the year what we're going to do.
Okay.
I came here from Stockholm, and I met up with Sam Dutton from Google, and he wanted to be here but couldn't for various reasons. But it's important, and it's useful, I think, for you guys to see that there's Google, Opera, Firefox, and IE all working to the same goal of a more performant web. And the reason for that is that we jointly want the web to win. We want the web to be the natural platform for people to develop applications on. That's a win. And we're all being as open as we can be, given we all work for big companies. We're all being as open as we can be about what we're going to do. But the net result of that is the web will become more performant because we're all, I think, committed to doing that. So that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bruce. And
I thought that you wanted to destroy the web, Bruce.
I changed my mind in the last hour.
Okay, guys. So I think you agree with me that nowadays there's still a strong line between the installed application, I mean desktop applications, and apps that run, in the browser window. So, are your company doing something to, I would say, to enable better than app cache offline modes for web apps?
Yeah, there's various different reasons why web apps can't yet replace native apps. Primarily offline. App cache is slapdash. App cache isn't particularly good. It solves some problems well, but it doesn't solve the problems that most people have. There's a new specification called Service Worker, which has just, I think, been finalized. It's being implemented in Blink, and Chris will tell you the story about Firefox and Service Worker. This is a really powerful API that gives you lots more control over what you can do. It works by registering a service worker, which is a JavaScript. And once you've registered the service worker with your page, every link you follow or every resource that your page requests, whether it's a video or an image, is sent to the service worker first. And you as a developer can optionally choose to store that in IndexedDB or in Web SQL. And then when the service worker notes that you are not connected, it can then drag those resources from the IndexedDB or the database and continue to show the page. That's going to come on stream pretty soon because that's one of the biggest blocks of getting web and native parity. Other things are responsive images. If you're writing for iPad only, you're probably going to be serving Retina images. The web, it's very difficult to serve images that are great quality on Retina devices and then squish them down to a tiny size for a non-Retina screen, and then you've wasted lots and lots of bytes with a great image that you then squish down. So 2.5 years ago, I proposed something called the picture element on my blog, which would be a responsive image tag. It's like image, but it has media queries attached and other things. 2.5 years later, the specification is there. Chris will tell you about Mozilla's plans for it. We had a fundraiser to have it implemented in Blink by a chap called Yoav Weiss. It's to pay him as a developer to give up client work and just write the C++ for Blink. That's starting now, so you will see native quality responsive images on the web, a tag that will allow you to send smaller images to smaller devices and retina quality images to retina devices. So it's looking good there. Service Worker also will allow you to do push notifications, and it will allow background syncing as well. So, you know, you can, when you're online, you can suck down lots of content and then view it when you're offline seamlessly. And there's other stuff too, but those are the main highlights.
All very encouraging. So yeah, we're working on implementing both Service Worker and the picture element in Gecko as well. Not exactly sure of the time frame on Service Worker, but I do know that we should have the picture element available in about Gecko 31 or 32. So
where are we now?
We're currently on 30. Well, 31 is just coming. The first versions of 31 are just coming into nightly now. So or something.
My element I invented. It'd be the Bruce element, really.
Well, we're currently calling it the Bruce is a dick element in
Prefixed, I hope.
in Firefox. That will change before the final release, but yeah, you know. So yeah, in terms of a better way to have offline capabilities, I mean, a lot of this centers around Firefox OS, but this is a lot of what I talked about in my talk earlier today, but we've implemented a way vaguely similar to the whole Chrome apps thing, but a way of installing web apps on your device. So you have just basically a normal web app with a normal directory structure, but you include a manifest inside the root of your application, which basically defines the application. It includes the name of the developer, it includes permissions that need to be granted to use certain APIs that app is going to use, and other information that defines that app. Then when you can then use an install API that will actually find that manifest file and just make sure that the application is, you know, it's a good application, it works, it makes sense, and then it will be installed on the device that supports that kind of install functionality. And then that instantly gets rid of the problem of having the assets and things installed on the device properly. And then there's also a handler inside the install API that allows you to then provide updates to that application in a traditional native app style updating way. And then in terms of the data, Gecko supports IndexedDB completely. We're also working on synchronous IndexedDB. That will be available relatively soon as well, which is mainly going to be used inside web workers. But of course, there's a problem about IndexedDB being used as the offline data store because, of course, we support it. Blink-based browsers support it. I believe, does IE? IE has IndexedDB now, doesn't it? Yep. But then, of course, Safari and iOS, etc., still has Web SQL, and then older browsers have local storage. So we wrote a polyfill library called Local Forage, which basically just bridges that gap across all of those technologies and just works seamlessly regardless of what browser it is that you want to have offline stuff stored for. I think about as far back as, does IE8 have local storage? I'm trying to think how... Yeah, so it works as far back as IE8 in terms of storing offline data for applications. Now, you may also think, well, you know, fair enough, you've got installable apps for Firefox OS, but what about everywhere else? We're also implementing a web runtime which will allow you to install apps on Android phones if you've got Firefox for Android installed, and also on desktop platforms if you've got Firefox for desktop installed. And then we're hoping that we'll be able to agree on a standard for this as well, so you can have that kind of stuff working everywhere. So that's kind of cool. And then, of course, we've also got a lot of APIs that we're looking at implementing to allow you to activate, to tap into the power of hardware features and specific phone features. But I think we can save that for another conversation. So pass you on to David.
So on our side, we deeply think that we now can almost do some application that looks native, that got the same performance, but it's quite complex today. It's still quite complex to achieve that. for several reasons. Well, the first one is that sometimes the different engine on the mobile have not been optimized yet enough to have some great performance. And the second point is about also all the UIs. So most of the project I'm following on HTML5, the problem comes from the UI. It's very complex to have very nice animation and control that looks like native controls. So on our side, as I told you, we have exposed a bunch of control to have the same look and feel as a C++ developer, HTML5 developer. This library is named WinJS. And people say that, well, this is pretty cool, but this is only running on IE. So last week again, some good news. We've released WinJS as an open source framework, and we're currently fixing it to make it work on Firefox and Opera and Chrome. The main problem we've got currently, we are based on CSS grid layout, which is a very good specification coming from Microsoft, so I need to say that. And the problem that is only supported by IE, I know that Mozilla and Chrome and looking at the specification, so we need to find some polyfill things to do that. And we've got IndexedDB since IE10. You should know that. So it's pretty good to have some offline supports, but still it's really complex to have a complete offline application that have all the same features as the native apps. You need to do a lot of work, and there is today some very few developers being able to do that. I guess it's less than 1% web developer are able to write some what we name single page application, being able to mimic a native apps. But on desktop now, I think that you can do it. The offline APIs, Mcache has not really great specification. I think we could make some better one. IndexedDB, it's great, but we don't have it on iOS. That's why your polyfill library is really very interesting and really helpful. So just need to learn the specification. Once it's working on the desktop, maybe it will run everywhere. This is a very beginning base. And we're also contributing to the Cordova PhoneGap project. I don't know if you know it, so this is another way to do it. So this is not some native web apps, but it's bridging the gap between the future specification. You can almost do it today, and maybe in 2 years you will remove PhoneGap and it will work as a native application using web standard.
Thank you, David. So I've got a question for Bruce. So what can developers, expect from the decision of Opera to switch to the Blink engine?
Well, it should be easier for developers because Opera and Chrome share the dev tools. I think when Chromium or Blink updates in Chrome, I think we're about a week later to update. So it's one less engine to test for. What you can expect is that for 18 years, Opera's been making browsers for people, not only for people in emerging economies, but we're very big in places like Indonesia, Africa, etc., places where devices are not as powerful. We've been expert at optimizing code for those kind of devices, and we're bringing that expertise to Blink. So any Chromium-based browser will benefit from our experience, not just Opera users. Users of Chrome and Yandex browser and Chromium and Opera will all benefit from that expertise, which is kind of a win for everybody. I want to say as well that when we are trying to make the web have the power of native apps, it's really important that we don't forget why the web is great. And the web is really great because it has URLs. And the web is really great because it's immediately publishable. You make a change to a website and somebody goes to that website 10 seconds later, they see the change. Native apps don't do that because they have to update. It's really vital that we bring the web up to feature parity so that you can do native app style stuff. But we have to be really careful as standards bodies, as browser makers and as developers, not to forget the power of the web, which is that it's worldwide and for everybody. We need not to try to beat native apps by becoming like native apps. We need to be web plus. We need to be the web but better, not throw away the strengths of the web. That's the core challenge for me. And if anybody's in Boston in 2 weeks' time, I'm doing a talk at an event apart called Web Plus, in which I talk more about that. So come to Boston, like just tell your boss you're going. It'll be great. We can have a beer, and you can hear me talk more.
Yeah.
So great points there, Bruce. I'd just like to add, like, we also mustn't forget the power of standardization, because again, like, in this interesting time where we're tapping into the native power of devices, the hardware features and the device features such as address book, etc., etc. I mean, we're all sort of trying to quickly invent our own APIs to control this stuff, but there's certainly quite a bit of work to be done to get this sort of stuff standardized across different devices. So we're certainly going to make that a focus between the different people contributing to the associated W3C efforts in the near future.
And it's important as well to acknowledge that the contribution that Microsoft's made recently to standardizing and the really great advances that Internet Explorer has made. And I wish we had a representative from Apple on here as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Chris, this one is for you. What do you think Firefox OS places in the mobile market?
So that's an interesting one, because so one of the main points of Firefox OS was really to kind of show, you know, this is a mobile operating system, but it's a mobile operating system that has all of these powers of native, such as not only tapping into device hardware features and such like, but also to have the things that native users and developers enjoy, such as an app ecosystem, you know, and a marketplace to be able to publish your apps and to be able to charge money for applications and things like that. You know, that's also really great. But we also wanted to make sure that the system would run really well on low-power smartphones, you know, to provide people in developing countries that can't afford an iPhone with some kind of a reasonable smartphone experience. You know, obviously it's not going to be quite as swish as your $700 iPhone, but that's not the point. You know, we've had quite a lot of interesting press reports where, you know, some reporter in America has gone, well, this experience sucks, and it's like, yeah, of course it sucks. It's on a $50 phone, and of course it sucks compared to your $700 iPhone. But that's just not the point. You know, like with our $25 phone, we want to provide something which is affordable in all sorts of developing markets, and we're currently working on the necessary optimizations to make sure that that kind of level of hardware can run the vast majority of the web apps that people are putting out with at least some level of effectiveness. So that's kind of the kind of markets we're looking for. I mean, I also think it will be the kind of phone which will be a good budget phone for developed countries as well. You know, it's the kind of phone that I'd trust my son with, not a $700 iPhone. But that's really the point. I mean, you know, a lot of people have also said, well, you know, you're basically running for third place in an already very crowded market. But if we at least get a bit of market share and a bit of recognition, you know, and to make a statement about how open mobile ecosystems could be, breaking down all the walled gardens, etc., then it will be a great success for us.
Okay. David, yes. So I think that browsers engine are not as good as they have to be on mobile devices. So how do you think can things change in the future?
Well, on the Microsoft side, we currently are trying to have a unique engine, unique rendering engine and unique JavaScript engine on our phone and console and PC and tablets, because we are building Windows. It's quite easy for us to build the same engine, and this is not as easy for our competitors because they need to support multi-platforms. So on our side, we're trying to say to the people, if you're making your code working fine in IE10 or IE11 on the desktop, normally everything should run as is on the mobile, except the performance, because the CPU and the GPU is different, but you will have the same one. So we're trying really to focus on having a unique engine, and that we're going to decline on all our platforms, and this is very important for us.
Okay, thank you. So I think the time is almost over. Do you have any questions? I think we have time for just one question, right? We have time for, yeah, maybe one. Is there any question you want to ask to these guys? Any of you?
When do you think that the ECMAScript 6 will be fully implemented and supported by your browsers?
Thursday afternoon. I don't know. The answer is when it's ready. That's the only answer I can give. Nobody benefits by rushing an implementation that has bugs in it, because bugs means interoperability is, I was going to say fucked, but I'll say damaged. Yeah, bugs mean that interoperability is damaged. You know, that was the problem with i6, is that there were bugs and they weren't fixed fast enough. We don't want to go there again. I would always say, and I think my colleagues would say too, it's better to wait and implement well than implement badly and saddle the web again with non-interoperability that will be there forever, because every browser version that comes out lives somewhere not updated and causes problems. So it'll be there when it's ready in Chromium.
I haven't really got anything to add to that. It's a fantastic answer.
And I can guarantee you that we've learned a lot from i6, because currently we had a lot of problems trying to convince our customer to switch back from i6. So that's why maybe sometime you said you can think that Microsoft is taking too much time to implement that features, but we want to do a lot of tests on it to be sure that we won't have to update our browser on all in the enterprise segment specifically. For ECMAScript 6, I think that currently some of the features are being shipped in every browser, some that are finished, so you can check them on various websites. And you can check also on our website, status.modern.ie, what we're currently looking at ECMAScript 6. And maybe we could say that in less than 2 years, you have a lot of cool things, but this is not very exciting to say less than 2 years.
So the answer is between Thursday afternoon and 2 years' time. And that's a guarantee.
Okay, so it's a promise, right? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time, and make a hand to these experts. Thank you very much. Thank you.